Got some nostalgia for you, Todd.
Oh man, that is old school. Let's see what I can pick out of this. That's Mario in the background. I can tell that. Man, I haven't heard all that in a long time.
It's kind of burned into your memory, isn't it?
Oh God, I mean hours and hours.
It reminds the like one of the first game rooms that I remember was the supermarket.
Yeah.
Going to Safeway.
Oh really?
Yes,
they had 5 or 6 games up front.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because they knew kids were gonna play while their parents shopped.
And I started thinking about it. I was like, because before when I was a kid, they used to have like the magazines and books and stuff
that's
up
right.
front.
Right.
The moment games came up, nobody started looking at the magazine racks anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
You're on the Asteroids machine, dude.
Yeah.
So what got this started is I've got kind of a new little venture that I've kind of stepped off into. And I wanted to build an old school, old style cabinet arcade system. There's a lot of them out there, and I know you guys have seen kind of the pre-runner to what I've got so far. But I got online and did all my research and found ended up finding all the old school joysticks and buttons and all that stuff. And there's plans out there for cabinets, and basically you can build the whole thing just like it used to be. So I got on this kick of I want to build this thing. I want to make this a reality. And so I started ordering buttons and controllers and all that stuff. So I've got all my electronics in place now. I just got to put the cabinet together. So I'm working on my plans to get that all built
So
up.
think about this.
Stoked.
This idea that you have, if you'd have tried to do this like 30 years ago.
Yeah.
I just don't see it. Suddenly you've got manufacturing companies making what you're now going to build at your kitchen table.
More or less, yeah. The companies that, and you would have been sued 30 years ago
Sure.
because these companies were all still viable.
True.
Atari and all these folks have now gone belly up. All the Midway, what was it? Atari, Midway,
Konami.
Konami. All those guys have gone belly up. So there's no patent rights on it anymore. So it's all open source.
But it's funny because when you look at those games, I remember back in the day when they would come out, like you said, Quick Trip was the place for us.
Yeah.
And then in town they had a game room, just a generic game room where everybody would go hang out and play.
And those game rooms were like ginormous.
They were lots of fun. I mean, everybody would show up every night. It wasn't just any particular night; it was every night.
That's like the original Facebook, if you think about it.
Yeah, it really is. If you wanted to meet somebody, that's where you went.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you wanted to be seen, that's where you went. It was kind of a cool kind of crowd scene for back in our generation anyway.
That was really my scene growing up. I mean, that's what I did. I was obviously the computer nerd, so that's where we all went.
There was a place over in Sharpstown when I grew up on the southwest side of town, and games people play.
Oh, yeah.
And Malibu.
Yeah. Y'all had one of those out there. Y'all had both of them out there.
Malibu Grand Prix.
Malibu Grand Prix.
Yeah,
so
Dave
those
and
were
Buster's.
and Dave and Buster's came. I was already grown and adult when Dave and Buster's came out.
The Malibu Grand Prix next to us, or the one that we had that was close to us, was also a castle of golf and games.
Oh.
Yeah, this big castle that you would go into, and that's where all the video games were. And then they had a miniature golf.
Isn't that the one that
course.
was over off of Northwest?
Yeah, it's like a parking lot now or something, but warehouses or something's in its place.
That was one of the first Malibus I ever drove at.
Yeah,
that particular location.
But just growing up with that stuff was so much fun. So being a kid, I enjoyed this stuff so much. I thought, why not? Let's revisit this and
sure,
kind of see where it leads to. So what do you remember? I mean, what was like some of your favorite games that you played when you were a kid?
Well, before we got on the air, I mean, I was telling you about my first gaming system I ever played on. It was a friend of my brother's and I. It was Pong.
Yeah.
So and
Bleep.
yeah, and then later on when we were, I guess we were early teenagers, we got gifted an Atari 2600.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
So Space Invaders was a big deal. Berserker,
Asteroids.
Asteroids. All because the thing is when those new games started coming out, my context was I played those games on the stand-up machines.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So suddenly, you know, in my head, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to get that same thing at home on my TV. Now,
With Atari, it was hit or miss because you kind of got ripped off
Yes.
on a lot of them.
Because I remember, like, with Asteroids for me was kind of cool because if you really think about the original Asteroids, it was all like polygons and
They call that line vector graphics.
Yes. So, but if you looked at the Atari version of it, everything was filled. You know that.
Oh, yeah.
It was 8-bit. By the time you got to Atari, it was 8-bit.
Okay.
Right.
And that was the difference in the two. For me, I'm like you. I was probably 6, 7 when Pong came out. 77, I think, is when Pong came out, so I'd have been 7.
Right.
And I remember my uncle got one, and man, I was over at his house. They lived around the corner from us, and I was over at his house every day. I'm like, Uncle Ray, you got to play me. So he would take the time and sit down, and we'd play for hours at a time, man, just addicted. And then the Stop and Go down the street got a Space Invaders machine, and I was in that place constantly.
Yes.
I mean, this is back before I could have a computer or anything. This is back before you had PCs at home. So this was the closest thing that I could get to it. You know, I'd seen Star Wars. I'm like, oh, this is cool. I want to live. I want to live this, right? So they got the Space Invaders in, and then shortly after that, Pac-Man came out. And I want to say that was around 79, 80 that Pac-Man really hit the scene.
Right.
And I would go in there every day. I mean, the guy knew me behind the counter. He'd have quarters waiting on me. He's like, here's your quarters. Give me your $5. Here's all your quarters. And I would be in there for hours at a time. If I wasn't at home, my mom knew where I was. She'd have to drive down there and get me.
That's fun. I guess for me, Pong is the first game I remember playing.
Yeah.
You know, growing up on a farm, we really didn't do much of that. You had to go hang out with people in the city.
Yeah.
To do that. You had to get your fix because our Pong was actually out working.
Tennis.
It
It was
out
called
working.
tennis with a racket and the ball.
And so Pong was the first game, but my favorite games I'm going to say was Asteroids, Missile Command, and
Yes.
Galaga.
Yeah,
Galaga was like, wow, I
That
love
was a
that
great game.
And so to me, it was all about the space strategy. I'm kind of like you. The Star Wars thing was really kind of big then. But there was a movie that came out years later called The Last Starfighter.
Oh, I remember it well.
And that reminded me so much. It took me back to playing games again.
Yeah.
That were all like space oriented. But yeah, Space Invaders and Missile Command, those were my favorites.
When you look at the evolution, when you started adding colors, it wasn't just this monochromatic thing.
Yeah.
Like one of the couple of games that I remember, like when Joust came out.
Right.
Oh yeah.
So all of a sudden, you know, now it's not a spaceship. You're riding a bird, and you're watching this thing flap its wings. And if I remember right, they actually, I guess, as technology started growing, you could kind of see yourself reversing in direction. So you got this kind of instead of a profile view, you'd be able to see yourself rotate.
So how we got there was processor technology. That's how we got to where we were. When you had Pong, processor technology was very rudimentary. Processors were big. They didn't handle heat well. The way information was taken in on a chip was difficult. That's why you had line vector graphics. People could manipulate lines a lot more simple than solid objects. Okay. When processor technology moved to microprocessors in the sense that you could have the 8086 processor type technology.
Oh God, I haven't heard that in forever.
Yeah, so that's kind of where that all came from, is from 8086 technology. When they got that chip in, it was like, oh, this is a whole new world.
Right.
I can add color, I can add sound, I can do.
Wasn't 8086 the precursor to 386?
808. No, 8086 was a processor designation. 386. Okay, so you're talking. What you're talking about is the actual processor. Right. I'm talking about chips and RAM, RAM and ROM themselves.
Right.
It started out as 808, and then it moved to the 8086, and that's where technology really started to take the turn, and we were able to get colors, sounds, all the interesting stuff that you enjoy in games now.
It's funny because that gap. So, like I said, I played games earlier on. And you remember when they had the football game that was on a little pad with the lines that move back and forth?
I got that from Christmas.
Yeah.
I got the baseball and the football.
Yeah, I played all of those
constantly.
Those are the games. Instead of being a console guy, I end up playing a lot of those because if you're sitting on a tractor or if you're out doing something,
is this the handheld?
Yeah, the handheld ones, and the lines dash back and forth.
Yeah, we had
you go for your runs.
Yeah.
That's the kind of games I would play for like the longest time.
We had Mr. Quarterback.
Right. Yeah. There you go.
That was, I believe that's what it was called.
Right.
If I'm not
Well,
mistaken.
there was a football version. It was like this nice, neat little square, and it was kind of the platform for not only football, it was also baseball, soccer.
Yeah.
Mr. Football was like, or Mr. Quarterback was like this weird shaped.
It was shaped like a stadium, wasn't it?
Yeah. I guess it'd be
it was
like a
stadium.
Yeah. But it was instead of moving up and down, you were moving left and
across.
right.
That's the one that I had was
Okay.
Mr. Football. It was white and it had the orange and red and yellow buttons.
Yes.
On it.
Yeah.
I can see that thing in my mind's eye clear as day.
I can remember the transition of the games like you were talking about, because I remember playing a game called Firefox. Remember when Clint Eastwood made that movie
Yes.
and he stole that jet?
Yeah.
There was this sit-down arcade game
Yep.
that you can sit in a seat and actually fly a jet, and you're fighting jets coming at you.
So they actually used movie clips
Yes.
from the movie inside the game.
Right.
So when I was kind of being inquisitive last night, I was looking at just kind of the timeline of seeing how this video game technology advanced. I ran across a game that I hadn't seen in years, and just because you just mentioned Firefox, it reminded me of this game. It was called Zaxxon.
Yeah.
Oh
And
my
it was
gosh.
and it
shuttle.
was like this 3D.
Yeah.
You were looking at it from a
remember
kind of a
that.
weird, and so you could actually see you rise and
Yeah.
fall.
That was one of the first times that they incorporated
Speed up.
three-dimensional area in a video game. Yeah, you had a throttle control,
Yes.
Yeah.
and you had a stick that it had a little elevator.
Yeah, because you had
on the side,
you
you
had
had
to
to see what
feather
your
it.
elevation
Yeah.
was. Yeah, you had to feather it to
'Cause
fit
you were
through holes
yeah.
and all that stuff.
flying
Yeah.
over holes and
Yeah.
walls and
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
ducking and diving, and then I guess at some point you start taking on, basically dogfighting other.
Yeah.
They would fly at you
Yes.
and shoot them head on out.
Yeah,
into
that was
space.
like a drifting. That was a very finesse game. You
It
really
was,
had to
yeah.
watch that. That was like doing your thrusters on not Missile Command, but Asteroids.
Yeah.
Yes.
Remember that? How you
Yeah.
would drift off the screen and come up in the top corner?
Hell, even Defender.
Yeah.
Remember Defender?
Oh, Defender, yeah.
Yeah, you could fire. Now
Yeah.
I think that was only a 2D, but you could
Right.
go to the front, left
And
or
it
right.
come off the back
Yeah.
screen, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because you had that
Yeah.
little boost thing where you'd be like
Yeah.
flying across. Yeah, I remember that.
It's funny because for me those kind of games really drew me in. They had a TIE Fighter game that you sat in the seat.
Yes,
And
that
you're
was
actually-
line vector graphics.
Yeah,
game
that
as
was
well.
flying that one, and I remember the tank. You had a tank game.
Battle. That is on the tip of my tongue. Battle Command. Battle Zone. That
Battle
was it.
Zone. Remember that?
Yeah.
But the game that I really liked the most was when we were a kid. We took a school trip to Branson, Missouri, and no, actually it was Bagnell Dam. And when we were at Bagnell Dam, we stopped at a game room, and they had this thing where you sat down and you're in a drag racer,
Oh wow.
and you had the clutch, the gas, and the brake, and you had to burn out. Then you had to stage, and you had actually the Christmas tree with the staging lights, and you were racing another guy next to you.
Oh, that's cool.
You either race a computerized car, or you can race another person, and you would sit there and you would redline,
Yeah.
and it would give you your reaction time and your ET. If I spent any kind of money on any game, I bet I spent $100 on that one just that one day, because that game was just flat out drag racing. It was fun.
So on your gaming system, so let's talk about where you're headed with this, and what game are you looking forward to playing when you get it all working?
Pac-Man number one. Because that was just so much fun. I spent hours. I mean, I'd buy books and learn patterns.
Right.
I could probably make on one quarter. I could probably make anywhere between 20 to 40 levels, depending.
Wow.
So you were way better at those games. I just, between sports, I mean, it was a good thing to do on like a Saturday night.
Yeah.
But I never got to the level that you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think. I probably spent a small fortune. I could probably put myself through several college courses with what I spent in an arcade. But Pac-Man, just like I said, a lot of the old classics that I spent hours playing. There's a lot. I have a lot. The beauty of it is you have access to all of what they call MAMEs. These are called MAME games. MAME is what it is.
Okay.
And they're all downloadable. It's all freeware now. Like I said, all these companies are defunct. So if you know where to go get them, you can basically have any game, no matter how obscure it is. You can find all the old games that you used to play. But Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, Asteroids, the original Asteroids. I mean, just
Oh, yeah.
all that stuff.
Right.
So I kind of For the console that I'm building now, what I'm going to build is what they call a cocktail machine. It was one where you used to sit down at them. They'd be in like a Bennigan's or something like our bar.
Yeah.
A lot of times if you went to a restaurant, they would have these cocktail machines in the lounge area, and that's how they got their name.
Right.
So you would sit down at them. My parents would be off eating or whatever. It's just like, hey, Dad, can I have a couple of quarters?
Yeah, because I remember those games, or the like the sit down ones,
yeah.
were at like the Pizza Hut and Pizza Inns.
Yeah, they
Right.
had them a lot of those places. But you could have your Coke. You could take your Coke
Right
and
there,
set it on
sit
the
in a-
machine and
Right.
play at the same time.
Yeah.
And then my parents could sit over there and have an adult conversation.
Sure.
You know, talk about finances.
Because
Because
Todd's over there with the babysitter right
Yeah,
now.
exactly. The electronic babysitter.
That's exactly what it was, too.
But yeah, just I think I'm going to build just a real simplistic machine for this first one. Pac-Man, Donkey Kong. I'm probably going to put about 4 or 5 games on it and then just enjoy that and see how it goes.
Those are a lot of fun. I remember spending a lot of time with that, and I wanted to buy one. And back in the day, those things were so expensive.
Oh yeah, like $3,000, $4,000, $5,000.
And that back then is like $10,000 today.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
like ridiculous. And then I had a friend that refurbished machines.
Okay.
He used to go around and buy all these machines up and then refurbish them, and then put them back in retail locations for use. And that was kind of fun to sit there and go get to test the games out. And the ones that he would fix and repair, he'd say, "Hey, come play this thing." And you just play limitless.
Yeah, try it. Just to make sure it all
just
works.
to make sure it all works. And that was fun. But it's kind of weird because I was a huge pinball guy,
Yeah.
and now that they got digital pinball, man,
But it's hard, man. If you ever step up to an old pinball machine, it's so cool to be
Yeah, it
able
is.
to feel the tactile feel of the
yeah.
flippers and stuff in your hand, you know?
and the fine art of bumping the table,
Bumping the table
So,
without
like,
tilting.
without tilting. Yeah,
When we were kids, my uncle owned a bowling alley.
Yeah.
Out in West
perfect
Texas.
place for that.
So, and his bowling alley was like in the middle of nowhere. It was in Altair, Texas, and the closest really civilized town was north in Columbus. I mean, literally, it was just like there was nothing around. It was like you've got this hotel sitting at this crossroads, and the name of this hotel was called Skull Creek Lodge.
Oh, wow.
So perfect.
Did Norman Bates live there?
Yeah, well, and the thing is,
Thinking
it's like
Stone Cold Steve Austin.
yeah, and the thing is I mean, it was not unheard of to see like tumbleweed
Coming through.
to come through because there was rangeland all the way around this place.
That's crazy.
So when we were kids, it was kind of a full service. It's about as full service as you could get for the area.
Right.
It was probably maybe a 50-room motel. So you remember the motels where
yeah.
you're
So it was
actually
kind of like a Bates Motel.
yeah. So you're actually part.
Yeah.
Is that how
Yeah.
it was? Okay.
Yeah, like a Route 66 style
Yeah,
hotel.
yeah.
So
yeah.
you'd park right in front of your room.
Yeah.
Get out
And for,
go
and
in.
for us, because it was family owned,
Yeah.
we would have these family gatherings
Oh, wow.
at his hotel.
That's cool.
So he owned a nightclub that was the local place for the locals.
So you
to
had
go
everything to do. You had bowling. You
We
had
had
you had a place to
bowling,
sleep and
dancing,
eat.
drinking,
Yeah, swimming
video
pool?
games. Yes.
See,
We had
dude, that's perfect. I'd never leave.
Yeah, I wouldn't either.
Yeah.
And it was like this courtyard type setup. So when we would go there, I mean, we would have dreams of playing video games at his bowling alley because it was, and he had the lanes on one side of the bowling alley. You had all of the arcade, pool, jukebox, all set up in this other side. So I threw several quarters in the jukebox. I can't tell you how many times I played Slow Ride. Fog Hat.
Right.
Oh,
I
my
love
God.
that
While you
song.
played video
Yeah,
games.
Yes.
that's a great song. Well, it's funny because these game rooms were a big part of pop culture.
Sure.
I mean, if you look at Dazed and Confused,
Yeah.
that was where they all hanging out at the
Yeah.
game room. Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Hey man, you got a quarter?
Yeah,
run right
exactly.
in and play. And it was kind of neat because as a kid growing up in that era in the early 70s, when somebody got a new game, everybody showed up at their house to play.
All day. I
And
mean,
we would-
can we spend the night? I
Yeah.
remember that. Let's
Oh,
spend the
yeah,
night.
yeah,
You would-
yeah.
We'd stay up till it actually shut itself off. It would shut down from heat exhaustion.
Right. It's funny because we didn't fight. We didn't pull guns on anybody. We
No.
didn't go rob anybody.
No.
We weren't getting stoned. Well, some people were, but I wasn't. So I mean, you had basically a way of a bunch of teenage kids getting together
It's
and having a good time.
It was a digital anchor because
It was.
once you were there, you were not leaving that thing.
There was no reason to leave.
No.
You had everything you needed right there.
Well, you wouldn't lose your turn either.
Exactly. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Lose your. I'd forgotten.
You didn't want to
that.
lose your turn because that's how that game was played.
And,
I'll never
and you
forget
can't
that.
forget the pizza rolls.
Yeah.
Pizza rolls.
Right.
Yeah, that was the only time you would leave is if you had to go get something to eat.
Yes.
That was when you were older. You know, it's like, I got to run to Jack in the Box. Be right back.
So a friend of mine owned the Pizza Peddler, and it was really cool because it's out of business, so we can't get in trouble for this. But he would have the games all set up and everything in there. We'd come in and eat 3 or 4 pizzas. He'd have 2 or 3 pizzas that were just what he called giveaways.
Sure.
He would just give them to us, and after the restaurant closed, we were all upstairs, about 20 of us, playing video games till like 3 in the morning.
Wow.
While they were cleaning up and everything like that. And then when we were done cleaning up, it's okay, time to go.
Yeah, everybody bailed.
But he would let us hang out, and it kind of kept us off the street, kind of.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Out of trouble. And plus, he was that cool dude. He was that guy. He had a wife and kids. I mean, it wasn't like a weird dude.
Yeah.
But he had this really cool idea about, look, I just want you guys in here. I know
you
you're
weren't
out late.
breaking. You weren't out breaking windows. You weren't out doing drugs. You weren't out. They had control to a degree. They had control over where you were.
And it kept us busy. I mean, some of the best times I ever had were in that place.
Yeah.
Just doing that kind of stuff.
Mine was kind of out of necessity. So when I was a kid, obviously extremely hyperactive.
Right.
And my dad didn't want to keep me. Like on a Saturday, he's like, you got to get this kid out of here. He's on my last nerve. God rest my dad's soul, but he had the patience of about a thimble, and he was done. So my mom would have to take me to the mall with her when she'd go shopping. My mom's thing was to go to the mall every Saturday.
My mom too. Okay,
yeah,
I will say
so
that.
I think that was kind of an 80s thing,
yeah,
right?
It was.
Because, they could get together with either their family or whoever it was or friends, and they could all go shopping. So that was the social interaction.
Yeah, it was just a distraction from home.
Right. They didn't necessarily buy something every time they went, but they were going. But anyway, she didn't want me hanging in the clothes racks and stopping escalators and all that kind of stuff. So she would say, here's $5. Go to the game room, and I don't want to see you. I'll come get you. Because I was a terror. I remember one time when I was in Foley's. This is one of my youngest memories.
Oh my God, Foley's!
Foley's.
Wow.
Remember Foley's?
Yeah, I do.
So I was standing by the escalator, and there's this big red button. No clue as to
no
clue as to this. It said stop. There's about 30 people on this thing. Yoink! My finger immediately goes to this.
Jerked everybody off their feet.
Dude, they all went stumbling forward, and everybody just kind of turns around, and my mom is reaching down to grab me about the time everybody turns around, and she's like...
Mom, there was a few of them there that needed to walk.
Yeah, they looked
needed
like they
to walk.
I'm thinking this is a cool new game.
Hey, if you do this, I'm not liable for what happens to you next. But anyway...
Right?
Doing stuff like that. I remember I got caught in a clothes rack one time and was pushing it all around the store. I'd grabbed hold of the bars and it was on wheels. So this is the kind of hell that I caused my mother. So that's why she was like, for $5, I can babysit this kid for infinitum. So this is literally how it got started. Here's $5. Go into the Gold Mine game room at Northwest Mall.
Gold Mine, yes.
I lived in that thing.
Westwood had either a gold mine or a fool's gold. I forget what they called.
One of the two. They were all owned by the same corporation in the beginning. Now they split them up and sold them off indivially after
it's like
I think the late
pedophile's dreamland.
Oh God, yeah. It was dark and lots of places to.
And it's a shame that the world has come to that too, because that's what I think killed it. I really
probably
do.
so. I mean, I don't ever remember having anything like that go down in the ones, but
well, that's because you were engaged and focused. You had a lot of drifters and peripheral hanger out.
Yeah,
I like going to the game room because there's a guy that gives me a juice box that makes me fall asleep.
There was probably a dude in the corner jerking it somewhere while I played, but whatever.
Well, yeah, I guess because nowadays they just show it. I mean, that shit's crazy.
But no, I'd go in there for hours, and inevitably, it's like anything else you do, you get good at it. Mm-hmm. So when Dragon's Lair came out, that was the big one for me.
I remember that.
Oh, that was the game changer. So
you like storyline games at this point?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. And this is I was getting older at this point. I was probably 12, 13 when that game hit the scene. Right. So they had magazines related to video games and computers at this point. I had a computer at home already when this had come out. So somebody had published a walkthrough guide for Dragon's Lair.
I'm waiting to see where this goes because there's one game that I completely blame you for.
Okay. I know where we're going with that. So anyway, I study this guide like it's the Bible. Like I'm going to hell if I don't memorize this thing, right?
Yeah.
I read this thing all weekend, all during the week after school. I mean, I couldn't let it down. So eventually, I had it all committed to memory. I went in. I was able to beat the dragon on one set of quarters. It used to cost $1 to play that game, and that was ridiculously expensive.
Is this to keep staying alive just so you could?
Yeah, well, I mean, you got 3 lives for $1.
Right.
Is what it was. So I committed all this to memory, and I would have throngs of people around me watching me beat the dragon.
Right.
And it probably took 20, 25 minutes to 30 minutes maybe to get all the way through the game.
Wow.
Okay.
So it was a long game. Well, eventually people were like, dude, I wish I knew how to do that. And I'm like, You know, the entrepreneur in Todd.
Sure.
Hey, $5 and I'll teach you how to do this.
There you go.
Dude, I would walk into the game room with $5 and I would leave with, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 bucks in my pocket.
That's amazing.
For a kid that's 12 in the early 80s, that was a ton of money. Dude, I'd buy records, clothes, whatever I wanted.
Sure.
So when Mom saw that, she's like, I'm going to have to figure out how I can...
Are you dealing drugs?
Yeah, well, yeah, that was the first thing. But then
Full
she's
hustler.
like, then she's like, well, we're going to count this toward your chores. You're going to have to start learning to do this. If you're going to start teaching people to play,
Sure.
you're going to have to work for your $5. So,
Well, you got your own money rolling in. You don't need chores.
that's the way she saw it.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, just give me the $5.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, you know, the games that, you know, I don't know when the arcades started to die off because there's still some around.
Yeah.
But I remember some of the computer games started really getting good at home. So I had a 286 SX would be probably one of the nicer computers I had.
Yep.
And there was a game called A10 Tank Killer. And so that was your actual really good flight simulator because most of them were really dodgy line graphic flight
I had
sims.
F-15 Strike Eagle was the
had
first
that
one
one.
I got. And it was the graphics
Yeah,
were
it
terrible.
was
The
terrible.
flight controls were all right.
Yeah.
And you use keystrokes. You had real things like flaps and
Right.
Bombay doors and all that stuff. But
Yeah, I ended up with, like I said, with the A10 Tank Killer and flying. And this is right around the Gulf War, too. This is right when the first Gulf War broke out.
yeah,
And I was also playing another game called Degeneration.
I vaguely remember that. I know I
Degeneration
played
was you're
that.
working your way through a biohazard building before it blew up. So what you started at was the ground floor. And they released this. It was like a CDC scenario gone bad.
Okay.
So they released a virus, and everybody in the building started
So
turning
basically,
into it's an
almost
apoc-
Walking Dead.
Yeah, it
Run
was.
for your life.
Basically, it was. It was a precursor to that, and everybody was like zombies, and you had to fight your way to the top to get rescued by a helicopter. And you played floor by floor by floor, and it was a tough game, and it was like running the whole time.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It was like Pac-Man
I mean,
without.
I know I played that
Yeah.
game for whatever reason. It's just escaping my
I would
memory.
spend hours, and that was when I first realized that it's not good to start playing a game at 10 o'clock
Yeah.
because then it's 6 a.m. before you know it.
Because
Yeah.
again,
So that's where we were going. Go ahead, Graham. I'll let you
Yeah.
tell the
So-
addiction story.
So when Todd and I were at Coleman, I remember walking into Todd's office, and he had Diablo
Oh my god.
2 going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now the version that I saw him playing was there was this program called Hero Editor. So what you did was you were able to take your character or take that file, put it in this program, and then you could actually add attributes of some other character
Insanity.
into your character. Now you couldn't.
So you're hacking the game.
I am.
Yeah.
I was waiting for him to finish, but cracking the game
Yeah.
after you play it, cracking the game's almost as exciting as playing the
Gotcha.
game. So go ahead.
So
Graham.
so I'm watching this game now. I had since been away from games for a while. Now my kids had the PlayStations and the Super Nintendos, and I would play with them for a little while, and then I would just kind of go away. Now playing on computers, because now I was around computers all the time. Now I had one at home. I was divorced, so now I was like looking for a time killer of sorts. So I walk in, see Todd playing this game, and I'm like, "What the fuck is that?
What are you doing?
What are you doing?" And so he tells me what it is, and I go ahead and get my game, and
He went out and bought it at lunch. He didn't just
That-
go get the game.
that ever since my introduction to that game,
Yeah.
that's my crack.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So I bought it. I was like I would find myself up to like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning playing this game, and I'd be like, "God damn it, Todd!"
Yeah. He'd cuss me
So-
every morning. He'd come in with sleep in his
So
eyes. He'd go,
when
I
I-
hate you.
When I went in the army,
That's funny.
and we were like cordoned to barracks. We couldn't go anywhere. Now, back then, we were having to play on the disc got passed around from computer to computer. So a lot of the guys knew how to create these networks within the barracks. So we would play these games
just amongst yourselves.
Amongst ourselves.
Your own network.
Yeah, so we played.
See, that's how we used to do it too.
Yeah, network gaming.
Is it Warcraft?
Yeah.
Not the World of Warcraft.
No, you're talking about the game where it was an overhead view, a strategy game.
Yeah,
and
so
you send your orcs against the knights and the dwarves and all that
So we would
stuff.
play Warcraft, and I had never played Warcraft.
So I never played those games before.
Warcraft, but Diablo was my shit. And then when Diablo 3 came out,
Yeah. See, I stopped it too.
yeah, at Diablo 3, I'm all over. I've laid off for a couple of seasons.
So what pissed me off about the whole Diablo 3 thing, and it's still big actually.
It's
Ton of people
huge.
still play it.
It's huge.
What irritated me about the Diablo 3 was the control that Blizzard incorporated with their. They basically wanted you to pay to play, and it was getting expensive to pay to play. That was the big problem. The way they would come out with updates, you were constantly having to buy updates, and I wasn't going to do that.
Right.
Used to, you could have just bought the disc, got on Battle.net, that was their little local network, and you just played.
It is that way now.
Is it? Okay,
Yes.
so they've gone back to
Yeah, so the only version that they have that where people like pay to play,
Yeah.
that's that whole World of Warcraft shit.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Diablo, Blizzard started to go down that road, and I was like, I'm not doing this. That, and then when they nerfed us all in Diablo 2,
Yes,
they took a bunch of our items and basically
I
got rid
remember
of them. Nerf being a term for taking it away. They took away a bunch of items. I'm like, you know what?
or
Screw
powering
these.
it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, screw these people. I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
No, you're not getting any more of my money.
It's funny because I'm like a single person game player for the most part. It's kind of I did a few network games, and this is going to sound weird, but like when I get bored or if I got my mind on something that's really bothered me, I'll throw in a game.
Yeah.
And the Nintendo, what's the gray Nintendo box? What was that called?
Oh, 64.
Okay, so the Nintendo 64. A friend of mine and I used to play Mario Brothers Golf all the time.
Yes.
And then we played tennis, and so we would sit there. We worked the same shift. We'd get off at like midnight.
Yeah.
Come to the house and drink a few beers. Next thing you know, it's like 4 a.m. and we're still battling at the golf. So we would play that for like a lot. And then after a while, I got to where I didn't play games, and then PS3s came out.
Right.
And so a friend of mine talked me into getting a PS3 and going online and doing the Call of Duty thing. Now those are fun.
Huge into that. I've played all of those. I mean,
those are fun.
They are.
And you can either play network or I usually play single player. And so for me, it was just a way to escape, get my mind off of what was bugging me.
Yeah.
Right.
Not necessarily addicted to it, but it seemed like I found myself playing a lot of these games. And the driving games got to be so realistic.
Yeah.
Like you look at Forza on the Xbox.
Yeah.
Forza,
Oh
Gran
my
Turismo, all
God.
those.
Those things are fun. And the next thing you know, you're spending 6-8 hours campaigning.
Right.
Yeah.
Basically. And it's kind of the graphics are just incredible, but you can really it's like a whole immersion. I played Dead Red Redemption for a long time.
Great game.
And that game literally does take you into a complete whole different world.
Yep.
So
You're
I've got-
literally that guy.
I've got the PS4 and the thing. So I have a buddy of mine that I turned him on to Diablo 3 because he was looking
And that could be on PS4 now? You can play that on
Yes.
PS4? Okay.
Now here's the thing that I hate about, and I don't know if it's just PS4 or if it's just PlayStation, the PlayStation platform altogether. You had to buy like this online thing. So I was trying to convince him, hey, if you
Subscriptions. That's the future.
yes. So I was like, okay, if I play on my computer, no money changes hands whatsoever. The moment I change platforms, and then have to go through a subscription. And the thing is the game is different on the computer than it is on the platform.
Right.
Yeah. It's played. It's actually played differently.
Yes.
And the thing that aggravates me more than anything is like baseball games. I love playing skill games like
Same.
the show and MLB and NBA basketball. I think right around 13 and 14, you had to have an online subscription for it to update your rosters and play,
right.
or it would not let you play the game. I think that's wrong.
Well, it's their marketing strategy. I mean, they're smart. I
Well-
understand what you're saying, but
You pay $70 for a game.
You do, and then you
should
have
be able
to pay
you should
monthly.
be able to play without
or
having
not
to pay
monthly,
monthly.
but
Yeah.
seasonally. You know.
Suddenly, you're more into that game than
and
financially than it was for that $70.
Because I remember when Sierra Online came out with games.
Yeah.
Remember that way back then?
Who?
They had
What is it?
Sierra Online.
Yeah.
I don't know who that
Actually,
is.
my neighbor was one of the administrative secretaries for that company.
Really?
And
They're defunct now, if I'm not
they
mistaken.
are. Yeah, that guy. There's a lot of stories about that dude.
Yeah.
But she did all the EULAs. She did all the legal stuff for him, things like that. But I remember they had one called Fly Fishing, Trophy Rivers Fly Fishing.
Okay.
And it was one of the most realistic PC games I've ever played. Because it's just fly fishing. How do you make fly fishing a fun game?
Yeah.
Well, they figured out a way to do it. And some of the flight sims or some of the games that they did were really good too. But I just don't like the fact that I'm going to spend $400 on a game deck, and I'm going to go out and spend $70 on a game, and I can't play it because I don't register. That's bullshit. I mean, literally.
TVs have gotten like that. It's not to really change the subject. It's funny. My mom bought a new TV the other night, an Element, Roku Element is what this thing is called.
Yeah.
And unless I couldn't put it online, if I went in and if I assigned it to the router and put in the router password, it immediately went to Roku's site and said, I need you to send this registration code to your phone, and you go through your phone.
Yeah,
it would take you through a payment process, and there was no way to get out of it. So I had to go in and set the TV up without it being on Wi-Fi, so I could just get it connected to the cable box. It was insane. I mean, it's a marketing scheme that they've learned. Video games are what brought you that.
Yeah,
but I could not put the TV online. I could not put the TV online without registering with Roku. And paying.
So you did have to pay, because I have Roku, but I don't have a payment.
This was asking for a credit card, and it said if you went in and started selecting channels, but I wasn't going to put my credit card in there for the sake of putting, because you're dealing with with an operating system. I know what the security protocols are. With a TV, I don't know what the security protocols. So I don't know what the security protocols are on those. I don't know what it's storing. I have no clue. So I wasn't about to put a credit card in there.
No,
it was on the TV that they were wanting the credit card.
Because I have it on my main TV, but because now that has become the TV that's primarily used by my parents.
Yeah.
Roku very rarely gets used. Now, me on the other hand, I have Fire TV on my TV, on my main bedroom, and I know that that gets used all the time.
Do you guys game on your smart TVs?
I have.
Because they have the subscription portals.
They do. No, I don't game in that sense. I see what you're saying. No. When I game on my TV, it's through my console. I don't game.
Because I know when you go to hotels and you sit in a hotel room and they have the ability to rent a game on.
Yeah, I have seen that.
And I notice on this TV here, this latest generation of smart TVs, is that they give you the option to play console games on the TV.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you all did that or not.
I haven't done that yet.
Now my DVD, we have a DVD, a Blu-ray. No,
it has games built into that.
Yeah, it's a 4K. Now. Yeah, this 4K Sony is just
phenomenal,
crazy, man. And so I don't even have to use my smart TV. It just comes through my VCR.
Some of those games that are built into some of those
DVD player
consoles. I mean, they're not ridiculously advanced, but
they're
entertaining. They're well thought out.
Yeah.
They really are.
Definitely very cool.
So it's funny that we've gone from where we started was Pong and through the 8-bit sectors, and now we're playing games that you can't tell the difference between reality and the game.
Yeah.
I mean, it almost looks realistic.
But there's still an appeal, though, to play those older games.
And that's what I was going to say. Going back to my childhood and enjoying that, I get as much enjoyment out of that as I do sitting down playing the latest and greatest shooter.